Burlesque Stripped Down, episode number 23. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Velvet Eau Claire, your guide through all of the secrets, the saucy secrets, the sexy secrets, and always the not-so-sexy secrets of the ladies and gents behind the tassels. This is Burlesque Stripped Down. I am so happy that you decided to push play today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome back to all of our regular listeners who've been with me since the beginning, and welcome to any new listeners who are tuning in for the very first time. I hope you absolutely love everything that you hear today. As always, we are getting into the nitty-gritty today. I have a super special guest with you, and I was so excited to hear that she was interested in coming on the show, and when we chatted, it just got you'll hear. It's just an amazing, amazing interview. She's fantastic. I have the beautiful, the talented, and just the super impressive Miss Sukki Singapora today. Yes, Sukki Singapora, the premier, in fact, as we'll hear, the only burlesque star right out of Singapore, and instrumental in legalizing burlesque in Singapore. I mean, just a huge, amazing person. I actually first heard Sukki on another podcast called the British Asian Podcast. It's funny that I listened to that at that point because I am neither British nor Asian, turns out. But I saw the host post in one of the podcast groups that I'm part of, and I saw that it was a burlesque performer, so I knew I needed to listen. I fell in love with Sukki, and I was really excited to get in touch with her and to bring her on the show to tell a little bit of her story. So I really hope that you enjoy it today. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, keep in mind this is Burlesque Stripped Down. Twice a week we do podcast episodes. On Mondays I throw these interviews at you with these just amazing ladies and gentlemen from around the world and just telling their stories and getting down to the kind of the nitty-gritty, the reality of what it is to be a burlesque performer. And then on Thursdays, I come at you with some quick hot tips as well. So last week, for example, we talked about the difference between finding your passion and finding your purpose. Right? And these differences between passion and purpose as far as your work, neither is bad. They're both good, but it helps you to kind of define your trajectory, perhaps with your career, with your art, whatever it may be. So definitely have a listen to that if you haven't already. I am going to be continuing, as I've said, with some amazing interviews over the next few weeks. And I have some great announcements to make. The first of which is that I will actually be attending a conference called Podcast Movement in July. And I'm going to be volunteering there. So I'm going to be helping out with all of the kind of behind the scenes things and seeing how it all works. So I'm really, really excited. It's a huge convention, a conference for podcasters. And so I'm really pumped to learn a lot of different things there, to learn all that I can from these amazing colleagues and leaders of the industry. So I will definitely be coming back at you with some hopefully amazing things towards the end of the summer. So that's my first big announcement, but there will be more announcements to come. I have some great things in the works. But for the time being, I think it's about time that we get into our guest of honor today, Miss Sukki Singapora. Now, I do just want to make a quick note. We did have some connection trouble between myself and Sukki. That's what happens when you're on opposite sides of the world, I guess. So you'll notice the audio quality isn't quite what I normally like to have for my interviews. I hope you will bear with me. It's so amazing. I didn't want you to miss out on any of her awesome content. So please forgive the quality, but enjoy the content, because I always appreciate you tuning in and listening. Now, Sukki is Singapore's first ever burlesque artist, as I mentioned, and as you'll hear later on, she gained global recognition by leading the movement to legalize the art of burlesque in Singapore in January 2015. Her work as a role model for Asian women and men in the arts saw her nominated for London's Asian Women of Achievement Awards and led to a royal invitation to Buckingham Palace, the first burlesque artist in the world ever to be invited for tea by the royals, which firmly secured her position as one of the most phenomenal burlesque artists of our time. Sukki is known for her lavish and elaborate performances and costumes, which she intertwines with a unique Asian-influenced style. Sukki's incredible passion for design and embellishment for each of her creations is reflected in the time it takes to complete just one of these stunning feats of artistry, sometimes over 2 years from conception. She truly is an artist, a talent, and an undisputable female powerhouse. And, if I might add, quite the riot as well. We had a great time giggling and laughing during our interview. You'll hear it. We get a little bit crazy. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in to my interview with Sukki Singapora. That is right, ladies and gentlemen. I have Miss Sukki Singapora here today, and I am super excited to talk to her from all the way over on the other side of the world. I believe she is in Singapore right now, so we are recording in the early morning her time, late at night my time. Welcome, Sukki. I am so glad to have you.
Hi, thank you for having me. Yes, super early here in Singapore.
Well, that's so sweet of you to take the time, and I know it's tough. It's one thing to be up in the morning, and it's another thing to have to talk to somebody and be recorded.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Well, it's great to have you here. I always like to kind of, jump right into the good stuff. Our listeners heard a little bit about you in the bio that I read, but is there anything that you kind of want to add into your normal bio or something that exciting that you have going on right now?
Oh my goodness. Well, I guess the biggest thing is that some of you guys may know that I co-produce the world's largest Asian burlesque event, the Asian Burlesque Spectacular, every year, every May in New York, and it's happening again this May on the 21st. So I think that's the biggest thing that's happening right now. So definitely check that out.
Exciting. Yeah, that must be quite a stressful event.
We've been doing it for a couple of years now, so it's kind of one of those things where you get into the motion of it. But we're very excited that this year we're bringing on Murray Hill as the MC, and I'm a total fangirl for Murray, so it's going to be a really special one.
Well, that's what you have going on at the moment. Let's back up a little bit, go in our time machine. Tell us a little bit about kind of your journey into burlesque. I mean, we can see things on your website and all of that, but how did you really, did you have a moment when you just knew it was right for you, or how did you kind of come to this particular industry?
I suppose it's a little bit of a different path than perhaps the more traditional one, in that I'm mixed race. I'm half Singaporean, half British, and it's a way of kind of discovering my identity, because I didn't really feel like I was one or the other. I felt like this kind of mixed floating human. I discovered vintage fashion as an outlet where I could express myself irrespective of race or gender. And through vintage fashion, I obviously inevitably heard about burlesque, because stars of the 90s in America are massive advocates of vintage fashion, and vintage fashion tends to go hand in hand anyway with burlesque. And I was actually trained in classical ballet from a young age, from the age of 7, so I was interested in dance anyway. And it was kind of this moment where I was like, oh my gosh, what is this thing called burlesque, and where can I sign up? And yeah, it was then that I just thought, oh my god, this is everything that I want to do, to be. It speaks to me with the strong focus on female body confidence, female sensuality, and taking control of one's sensuality. That was something that I was all about. And I tentatively use the word empowerment because I know it's bandied around a lot, but especially where I'm from, which is more culturally traditional, I'm going to say. It was something that I thought would be, an important kind of art form to follow, to go against that and to address that. So yes, I kind of threw myself into it because a theatre down the road from me was opening just as I discovered all of this. And I was actually working in IT at the time, doing the traditional Asian thing. Wait, there are stereotypes. And I kind of, I thought, right, this is a sign. So I just marched on in there, said I'd been a professional burlesque artist for years. They should hire me for their shows, and I would bring in hundreds of people. So my entry into burlesque was teaching myself off of YouTube in 7 days. And my first show was to 300 to 400 people in a professional theatre. So that was my entry point.
That is amazing. It takes some balls to do that, to just go in there and just, put that face on, fake it till you make it, right?
Right. Still to this day, no idea how I mustered up the confidence, but I'm very glad that I did, because I have not looked back since.
Can I ask you, like, at that time when you were doing that and when you were doing did you have, we've talked on this podcast before about kind of vulnerability and like that imposter syndrome, that feeling of like, who am I to be doing this? And for you, it was, I mean, it was a little more than a syndrome. It was kind of true. So what were the kind of the internal feelings as you went through that? Was it really difficult to do, or did you just kind of know that like, this is something I have to do right now?
There was a lot of complex feelings going on when I kind of decided I was going to get up on stage and actually go for this. For starters, I'd always wanted to do art, and I'm from a very traditional background, a very traditional Singaporean family, and my family were keen for me to do the sciences. And so that's how I ended up in IT. So burlesque for me was this feeling of I've done something that hasn't been making me happy, and this is now more than just an art form that I'm interested in. This is my way of finally being me. So there was very much that going on, those complex cultural issues, I guess. And also body confidence. I hadn't really, sexuality and female sensuality is not something that's really open public dialogue in Asian backgrounds. It's something that we don't talk about enough, especially as women. And so I think my body confidence was that it wasn't that I had body confidence and I thought I'd do burlesque because it suited that. It was more through burlesque, my very first show, I discovered my body confidence. So that first performance, absolutely, I was kind of nervous, anxious, thinking, what am I doing? I think that's normal when you get into burlesque. I don't know, I've rarely spoken to a person in the industry who goes in and goes, yeah, it was right for me, and I felt totally comfortable and confident with it from my very first show. And I think it's the learning process. And burlesque actually helps you learn more about yourself by the very nature of the art.
I agree with you 100% on that. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of artists I've talked to, there's an element of they had this gut feeling that it was right for them, but that doesn't necessarily negate those feelings of imposter or, what the hell am I doing and all of that. You may know that it's kind of like, this is it, this is what I've been looking for, but there's still that terrified, person inside of you.
Absolutely.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, we just recently, we had an episode with Kalita, who's a fantastic performer, and she does something called Showgirl Awakenings. And so she and I were talking a lot about kind of that, what you were just saying, that it helps you find out the person inside of you. It's so much more than just performing and taking off clothes and dancing, It really helps you to kind of find that internal you.
Yeah, I mean, especially in terms of appearance and, those are issues that I really found myself very intimately involved in, because there's also this I suppose, quite a controversial topic of Asian women, and I guess I'm just going to touch on it, the desire to be fair. And I think in burlesque, because I was an Asian burlesque artist and there weren't very many role models, if any, I'm pretty sure I can count them on two hands, in the industry. Brown girls doing burlesque, and by brown I mean Desi girls doing burlesque, was pretty much non-existent. And so as well, the normal aesthetic, if you will, was very much a kind of a Caucasian face. And I think that's very much the case across the board. Young Asian women who are going into entertainment kind of see these stars who are successful, who generally their role models have a Caucasian face, or they aspire to be fair. And I think as well through burlesque I really discovered my own confidence with my cultural identity, my, it's okay to be a Desi Brown pinup. I don't have to feel like I have to emulate the look of, say, Marilyn Monroe or that kind of aesthetic. So yeah, it really touched on that as well. In terms of the journey, I don't think you can get more self-exploratory than that, really. But I think as well it's because I was then one of the first Asian burlesque artists to really get into the art. I had this great sense of responsibility to portray what Asian burlesque would look like, and so that kind of helped me develop and become very comfortable with a Desi burlesque look.
And what you've seen, kind of, and you're based in Singapore still?
Yeah, between Singapore,
you travel a lot.
I'm in a different country pretty much every 2 weeks. That's not an exaggeration anymore, but I'm based between Singapore and the UK.
Well, the reason I ask is I'm just curious. You mentioned, kind of introducing, and you obviously were one of the first kind of Asian role models in the world of burlesque. And have you seen, a change in your career in how burlesque is either approached or how popular it is? I mean, is it becoming more of a thing either in Singapore or elsewhere in Asia? Are more younger girls or older girls or girls in general, boys, whoever, are they getting more kind of interested in it? Is it something that's kind of opening up?
Yes, slowly. And it, of course, depends on where in Asia. I know that the last time I performed in Tokyo a couple of years ago, there was a small burlesque scene, and now there's a full-on festival, and it's huge there. But that's Japan, and they've always been quite progressive when it comes to the arts. Singapore, I'm still the only Singaporean woman, and the only burlesque artist here.
Oh, wow.
Yes, not only the first, but still the only.
Still the only.
Yeah,
that's surprising. And I assume, there's no real call, like there have not been like a call for classes. People you haven't really seen a need for that, or there's a little bit?
I have. I don't know whether you're aware of the whole situation, but burlesque was previously illegal in Singapore.
Yes. Yeah.
So really there wasn't, if there was interest in it, it was more for burlesque style. But since that all changed last year after 4 years of campaigning.
It was just last year? I thought it was a couple years ago. Oh, okay.
No,
That's great.
I campaigned for 4 years, and the law finally got changed last year on the 31st
Congratulations.
of January. Thank you very much.
Good for you.
So since then, there has actually been a flood and a confidence in wanting to start actual burlesque. But it's more sort of enthusiasts than people wanting to be a full-time or even part-time showgirl, because I think there's still that question of whether the arts is a stable choice, and also because it's so, culturally traditional, doing something that so embraces and so promotes female sexuality and sensuality is something that's still, unfortunately, quite controversial. But it's baby steps, and I'm hoping that
Absolutely.
I can make a difference. But there has been an interest, and it's great that there's now a dialogue about it where previously no one could really talk about it.
Well, I think it's really amazing because you're in such a unique position. I mean, you are not just a performer, not just one of the foremost performers, but you are truly making social change, in your country. And I think that's got to be just such an amazing feeling to really have that. I mean, a lot of us have the opportunity to do that, but you've really taken it on and are at the forefront of that.
Yeah, I think it's something that kind of sounds more glamorous on paper. In that,
Fair enough.
The last couple of years has been extremely hard, and it hasn't all been plain sailing. It has been very difficult, and it's been a very emotional and challenging journey. And yes, I can enjoy it now, but yeah, surely from the start, and working so hard to make the change were some very dark and difficult times. So, one step at a time.
Indeed, yeah, I can only imagine because I haven't been in that situation. So I can imagine you're right. It's not as glamorous as it sounds to be making social change. There's a lot of hard times, I imagine.
A lot of hard work on the ground, yeah.
So on a happier note, as far as performing, because you obviously still do a lot of performing, and that's your, I've seen I've seen photos and some videos, and you have an amazing stage presence. When you do kind of come up with new acts, or when you did, I don't know if you still like to create new things, but where do you kind of find inspiration? And is there a typical kind of process that you go through when you create these acts?
Yeah, so I've been kind of forming, I suppose, fully formed acts since 2013. That's when I'd say that I moved from being somebody who was doing burlesque to a burlesque artist, because it's a learning curve, and everyone starts with a lack of knowledge about how to prioritize between Velcro and poppers and all the rest and everything that comes with it. And of course, your stage presence is something you build up. So yes, I've been doing acts since 2013, but yes, I do still add to those acts, which I've now been touring new material. I think it's really important to stay fresh, and also in an industry which is now, extremely saturated because it has become more mainstream. You need to not be complacent, and you need to keep challenging yourself. And I think that's why coming up with new acts is important. I take my inspiration from everything and anything, really, especially the experiences I had growing up. Because for me, it's not just about doing a burlesque act that necessarily I want to do that's kind of selfish and, I don't know, a little bit self-indulgent, perhaps is the better way of describing it. More because I'm put in this position, like you say, this, I don't know, unique position whereby I'm representing a whole genre of burlesque. I do feel the obligation to infuse Asian elements and parts of my culture into my routines as a way of showing this is what Asian burlesque looks like. I absolutely feel that. When I first went into burlesque, I kind of thought, right, yes, I am doing this for me. It is kind of like a journey that I'm going to go on. But as I gained popularity and more women and men were contacting me saying, you're making such a difference, you're so inspiring, I did feel like the acts that I then had to put out there should show a strong Asian woman doing acts that were influenced from her cultural heritage, because there's nothing out there for young Asian women or guys wanting to do burlesque that they can feel proud of, or there are very few, should I say. And so, yeah, that is something that I think about. But it can be anything. I mean, one of my acts is based on when I was a kid, and I used to love going to the zoo here in Singapore, and I was obsessed with the white tigers, the Siberian tigers. And so one of my acts is I've kind of designed this whole act, which is a very bump and grind but sassy and feline performance in terms of its choreography, and the actual costume itself is black and white and tiger striped, and that's just a little nod to that. And kind of anything that I come across in my life journey, I kind of inject into my routines. I really feel like I'm literally in that way wearing my heart on my sleeve, because it is such a personal thing when I'm coming up with my routines, rather than, a pretty dress, I'll make that an act. It's never been the case with that.
That's really beautiful. I like the way you put that. It's cliche, but putting your heart in your sleeve, and for you, it's far more than a cliche. It's absolutely true. So, do you have as far as the actual, act creation, do you have do you have a notebook where you just kind of write everything down, and then when you're working on coming up with an act, you kind of page through it, or do you just kind of keep everything in your head and just see what comes out when you sit down?
I think I'm my face 100% of the time, even at night, is glued to my phone. I have serious problems.
You're not the only one. I think a lot of us are in that boat.
I swear to God, I have 3 bad buddies in life: my 2 cats and my phone. So a lot of my inspiration I capture on my phone. So if I'm kind of going out somewhere and I see some incredible colors in the landscape or something, or I see a sunset, I'll take a picture and go, wow, that would be amazing. Or if I see something in a magazine or in a novel that I love the aesthetic of, I love the meaning of, then I'll capture it. Or if I'm hearing a piece of music and suddenly I'm like, that is something that I could lose myself on stage to, then I'll record it on my phone. And then I just refer back, and it starts like that, like a little seedling concept. And then I kind of think, how would this look? How would this play out? I daydream it for a couple of weeks. And then actually it usually takes me a couple of months. And it has taken me a year from conception to fully bring that act to reality and put it on stage. Because it's something I'm very passionate about. I don't like an act to be a kind of throwaway concept. I like it to be fully formed. Like you say, to very much be a case of wearing my heart on my sleeve. I like it to represent what I'm all about. So I take care to, from those initial inspirations and grabbing all that stuff on my phone, I put it together, and then I make the sketches for the costumes, and I really go from there. And I have an incredible team of people that I work with now that help turn some of my crazy ideas into reality, although I'm very much hands-on. I do all the designing and plenty of the Swarovskiing myself.
And as far as, I've talked about this with a couple of the other, especially classically trained dancers that I've had on the show, do you have all of your choreography set down to the T, or do you leave yourself more room for inspiration? Typically?
Absolutely not. I have pointers that kind of I mark in the music. This is where I'm going to do this. This is where that's going to happen, and I'm going to take that off there. But the rest, I like it to be organic. I like it to be reflective of how I'm feeling on that particular day. Because I'm quite an emotional performer. I don't know whether that's an Indian thing, a Bollywood thing, but I'm quite a musical theatre human being in my general day-to-day goings about. And I feel like if I structured something too much, it would lose that raw emotion of how passionate I am about burlesque. And so, yes, I'll have those pointers so that I never get behind. And I'm doing a kick there and I'm removing a stocking there. But on the whole, I try to keep it as fluid and as organic as I can, because I feel that's the most authentic representation of how I'm feeling about that performance at that time. And that's something that really generates an energy in the audience, because they're coming along that journey with you at that time. It's not something pre-rehearsed and you're not going through the motions. It's a part of this incredible journey of the night.
You mentioned using your phone. Do you have, I just made me think of, do you have Evernote at all? Do you ever use Evernote?
No, what is this?
Evernote's a great application that helps you kind of like organize all your thoughts. It's just basically an application you download on your phone, and it's got different, like you can put different notebooks, and you can do text notes, you can do pictures, you can do music files, you can do scans.
Evernote?
And it just kind of helps you keep everything organized.
Oh my goodness.
So
I may have to download that.
Judging by what you were saying about you capturing it all in your phone, because I use my phone sometimes too, but then it ends up I have like, kind of my memo notes that come on my phone, and then I have pictures in my gallery and all of this. So Evernote's a really great way to kind of keep it all like in one place to reference back. So
I am going to look into that, because it can take the IT geek out of the IT office. But I'm an analogy in there somewhere.
Something like that. As some of my listeners know, I'm big into kind of, I like the entrepreneurial, kind of hacks and things like that to make, productivity hacks and things. So I'm always looking for stuff like that. So Absolutely. That's one of my favorites. And for anybody listening, by the way, as far as, a link to Evernote, as well as anything else we mention here on the show, of course, as always, it's going to be in our show notes page, which is going to be at burlesquestripdown.com/Sukki, which is SUKKI. So you can find those links, all of that, over at that page. So, and you can download Evernote and do all of your planning and stuff in there, and you can move stuff around. It's a really nice application for any sort of kind of brain dump moments. Well, I always like to talk, we've gotten more into it over the last, my last few interviews as well, but really the reality of the burlesque, of burlesque in general, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. So I know a lot of times, you might have, something go wrong with your costume. There might be some kind of internal struggles that you're having that particular day. You might have that, we've talked about some bad venues and difficult places to deal with. What's been kind of a really low moment in your burlesque or performance journey?
Oh, this is the nitty gritty.
Yeah, I know it's a tough one. I always hate to kind of bring it down, but I think it's nice for us all to know that we're not alone when we have low moments.
Yeah, I think there have been some massive low points, and very much kind of as I've gained more popularity, I think as well. Sometimes in a female-dominated industry, we are a little bit guilty of loving the underdog, and then when somebody starts succeeding, possibly it becomes slightly competitive. I don't know. But yeah, there have been some times where I went into burlesque, as I say, in a non-traditional way. That doesn't mean that I wasn't respecting the art and I didn't understand about the history and heritage of the art, but I knew that when I got into burlesque, this was going to be my full-time job. I was going to quit my day job and I was going to do this full time. And as such, inevitably, even though it cringed me to have to do it, a big part of being a self-employed female or guy is promotion. It's something that you just simply have to do, and you cringe as you're writing or you're consulting people about your bio, and you have to say something like, "Oh, she's a great burlesque performer." And as you're writing that, you think, "Oh man, I sound so bad." But I think, it is something you have to do, especially if you're a full-time burlesque artist. And along the way, there have been some times where people have kind of been like, "Well, hey, she's not all that," and those have been some really dark times, because, of course, I don't think people sometimes don't appreciate, or at least they didn't appreciate last year, that I'd only been doing it sort of 3.5, 4 years at the time. And it was something that I was still learning, and I never said I wasn't. So I think those are some difficult times when you're trying to make it and you feel like maybe it's causing unnecessary controversy. I'm saying it in the most diplomatic way. But thankfully, I've kind of like come out of the other side of that, and I think the best way to combat negative feedback or difficulties within the burlesque industry is just to continue on and prove naysayers wrong. And that's something which I'd like to think I've done. I mean, it's kind of like, well, if you're not great being a burlesque artist, people won't book you. And I think the very fact that I'm celebrating my 5th birthday, I'm still going, it's my full-time job, that for me gives me the confidence to think, you know what, actually, I'm doing okay. So I'm just going to keep on doing this. So, yeah, and I think that whole issue is very much something which I think is important to tell anyone who's starting out and getting into burlesque, because often burlesque, yes, it is portrayed as women supporting other women, and for a huge part, that is the case. We are an incredibly close-knit community, and there are amazing people like yourself, and I've got some incredible friends within the industry that do literally support each other and appreciate that it's kind of like the sisterhood and strong women. But that's not always the case in the industry. And especially I've seen some terrible situations where newbies going into it have kind of like got into a dressing room for the first time, and maybe they've not got the best costume, or they don't understand, or they haven't cut a label out of something. And, they've been kind of sniggered at or laughed at or not taken seriously, or in worst case scenarios, ignored. And I've kind of been watching this unfold and thinking to myself, you know what, we need to stop doing this. And I think it's something that needs to be checked and talked about more in the industry. And especially, it's not just women. I've seen it very much, for burlesque artists or for both male and female promoters. It's something that we really need to check ourselves on all the time is, are we... Yes, we care about our art, and we can be absolutely protective over the integrity of our art, but also we have to genuinely live by what we're preaching, which is burlesque is about body confidence. It's about celebrating anyone doing it, and it's about supporting each other and going along that journey together. Luckily, things have gone amazing now, so everything is just on the up. But absolutely there have been some difficult times, and I'm sure that's the case of many of us out there. Perhaps we just need the confidence to be able to talk about it a bit more.
Absolutely. There's so much I love. What things that you said in there, I kind of wanted to be snapping my agreement along with that. Because I think it is really, and like you said, it does happen for male performers as well. But I mean, I can speak, because I am a female. So speaking for the females, I think, we have this dichotomy as far as how we're raised kind of in culture to be catty with each other. And it's really frustrating, and it's really a pity, I think. And we do, you're right. I mean, I think in the community, for the most part, we're able to get over that. But there are moments, even I notice it myself sometimes, that it comes up, and luckily I'm usually able to catch myself, but there are moments, even like when I'm releasing the podcast, and I've mentioned before, there's a couple other burlesque podcasts, and actually there's one called Lunch with Legs, and Legs is actually going to be coming on this podcast as well. So we're going to be doing, kind of co-interviews or whatever. And because when I first, you first see something that is, quote, competition. And as women, at least for me, the first instinct is to see it that way, as competition, because women are trained to kind of view each other that way. And it's a matter of just kind of getting past that and realizing, no, we are all here to support each other. Everyone is, doing the best they can. Everyone, we're here to lift each other up instead of push each other down to get to the top.
Do you know what? And sometimes people have asked me, when I have broached the topic, why do you think this is? Why do you think there is that, I don't know, that problem occasionally within kind of female-dominated industries? And I don't know whether maybe it's because being women and working women, previously it was like kind of very much the focus was on men working, and the women would have to stay at home. And then when women finally, suffrage happened and women finally managed to kind of like take control and grab it back off of men, there still weren't enough and still aren't enough jobs out there in the mainstream. So, for example, I don't know whether you read a recent article that came out in international news about how many females there actually are when it comes to managerial roles or in the boardroom, and it's still a very small number. And I think because of that, the culture of competitiveness, because it literally was that there were 100 women for one job, whereas any man would have the ability to get that job because of the patriarchal society, patriarchal government. Maybe that's how it created that culture. But now we need to just think, you know what, there's plenty of opportunity. Of course, there is still gender equality issues, and that still crops up. But in burlesque, that shouldn't be the case. So we need to think to ourselves, it's not about being competitive. There's plenty enough space for all of us, and no one's going to take away work from you. Do you know what I mean? It isn't
Absolutely.
the case anymore of us trying to compete for that one token female spot because it's a male-dominated industry. It is not. I don't know. Just putting it out there. Maybe.
No, I think that's a really interesting point. I have been reading a couple articles, and they didn't have specifically to do with gender or performance or anything like that. Actually, it was in a bit of like relationship with money and things like that, and some other places about this scarcity mindset. Right. And I think maybe that's applicable here as well. That idea of, that there's just not enough.
Absolutely.
There's not going to be enough, and maybe that's just kind of entrenched in us for those same reasons that you just mentioned, and it's hard to get past that. But I think kind of being aware of it and like you were saying, just talking about it is kind of the first step.
Absolutely. As long as we can open dialogue and be honest with ourselves about the nature of some elements of the burlesque industry, I think it's totally it could not be more positive a thing to do.
Did you have any moments, within that kind of those low points, were there any moments where you kind of second guessed yourself or your choice to do the burlesque? In kind of any serious way?
Yeah, there were many times where I just thought, you know what, I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. I feel so alone. I feel like it's so hard. Why am I putting myself through this? Why am I doing this? And I felt like in those dark moments, even though of course it wasn't true that I was public enemy number one and everyone wanted to sabotage my career. It wasn't the case, of course. But when you feel low, you feel like everything's going wrong. And I did feel like, there have been times where I've just thought, you know what, it would be so much easier to quit. And I think it's as well because the pressure of what I was going through, which was doing something that was illegal, was also playing heavily on me. So normal struggles of, sassiness within the burlesque industry or any other issues or, feeling like maybe you're not good enough or all these kind of negative thoughts you might be having were kind of exaggerated and amplified by the very fact that essentially I was doing something that was considered wrong, and I was in the midst of trying to change all of that, trying to change a law in a country. So it's pretty intense, and absolutely, I totally had moments where I was like, why am I doing this? Why don't I just quit?
And what kind of got you through those dark times? Did you have a support system in place, or did you just kind of still follow your heart?
No, I absolutely, both. But I absolutely had a support system of a handful of people who were so close to me and are such incredibly strong women. Lynn McKay, who is the owner of Kiku Boutique, always stood by me. Siobhan, who does my hair, she was always incredible. Rachel, my photographer. Cheryl, who runs the exhibition. Loads of, I could go on. Loads of women. Elisa, very close to me, who used to do my management for me. They were super close to me, and they really got me through that. And they were like, what you're doing is right. Keep pushing and be the best you can be. And if you're positive and you kind of give off a positive energy, it's kind of like the law of attraction. So there was that, and also inside I felt like, I'm just going to keep doing this because I was so passionate about it, and burlesque was everything that I represented, and it felt like it was right for me. And I kind of looked back and I was like, well, you know what, some people take 10 years to get where I am, so just keep going and just keep pushing. You're not doing too badly, and it is something that I really cared about. So yeah, mixture of both, my heart and incredible people around me.
Well, we're so glad that you pushed through because you're definitely a great person to have in the industry. I think
Thank you.
putting some wonderful vibes out there in addition to the amazing performances, of course. So we kind of went to the low ends, the worst moments, things like that. Let's flip the coin and talk about a little happier moment. Has there been a particular moment where you were just on cloud 9 or 19 or just that best moment you've had so far?
God,
I know it's hard to narrow down.
There have been some incredible moments over the last couple of years, and I'm still pinching myself to believe that these have happened. The first ever legal show in Singapore, which happened last year, was something where it was hard not to break down and cry when I was on stage, knowing that I was kind of making history, being a part of history. And that it was actually happening, because I really thought I wouldn't see that day in my lifetime, and I just couldn't believe it had happened. I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. That was an incredible moment. My first ever show for the Asian Burlesque Spectacular, the Asian Burlesque Festival in New York, when it was kind of like, as I say, a situation of there not being enough Asian and enough Desi Burlesque performers out there, and then I kind of had this idea myself, and then working with Calamity and Jen to do this festival, and all three of us put on this amazing night. And I think seeing all the Asian performers, what little of us there are, fly into New York and all be in one place and have such diversity of acts, and it be a success and it sell out, was something that was super, super emotional for me. And then highlight crazy points. Being invited to Buckingham Palace for recognition of being a role model within the arts was a pretty surreal and incredible moment for me, one which I will never forget. And of course, then going on to headline the Singapore Grand Prix, after it previously being illegal, to turn that around and then be headlining one of the biggest events on Singapore's calendar was an incredibly emotional moment, because all of that happened very quickly. It all happened within the year. So it was like literally taking the lid off a can of worms, and it just kind of all exploded. And it just keeps going. So yeah, so many moments that I've packed into such a small space of time. I feel very fortunate.
I love it. It must just be such a wonderful energy to think about that, and those amazing moments.
Surreal.
So as a performer, whether it's on stage or off stage, we've all got challenges that we kind of go through, things that maybe aren't our strengths, that we kind of work with. And even someone, who's had the amazing opportunities and had so much experience like you have, what's kind of your biggest challenge as a performer?
I used to get terrible stage fright, and I still get very nervous, excited when I'm about to go on stage. It's all kind of see my stage persona, and they see me on stage, and they see me all kinds of sassy and rocking my way through bump and grind. And what they don't realize is that, perhaps, hopefully they don't notice, is that actually I still get nervous. And it was something that I really had to overcome at the start, was literally getting the pre-performance shakes, where I'd have a blank and I'd be like, oh God, I don't know what my routine is. Wing it. That's what I'll do. I'll wing it. And getting over that was a big step for me. And I think it was just self-confidence. I'd chosen a career path going into the sciences that I didn't necessarily want to do. And because of that, I hadn't evolved in terms of childhood arts through to adulthood, and so I was missing this big gap of when you develop your stage persona in a theatrical background or within the arts, when you gain confidence, and it was something that I had to learn in a very short space of time. So yeah, overcoming that was super hard. I had to literally, there were moments where I had to literally psych myself up, and I'm kind of the palpitations I was getting from I'm oh my gosh, not only am I going to get on stage and there are going to be loads of people and there's so many eyeballs, but I'm going to have to be confident with my body, and all that was something that I really had to overcome. And it's still something, like I say, that I think about, when I'm about to go on stage. I think the difference is I've turned it from disabilitating energy to kind of an excitement and a positive adrenaline energy. That's how you overcome obstacles like that.
I love that you mentioned that, because that is very true, and it's something that we don't always think about, because those nerves are really a good thing, because they mean that you are, your body's getting into it, you're kind of, you're feeling, and you can change that instead of making it, kind of paralyze you. You can kind of adjust that. It takes time and practice, but you can adjust that and channel that energy into, like you said, adrenaline and moving forward instead.
Absolutely.
Well, we've been talking a lot, about some of the greats of burlesque, as far as, paying homage to our not our elders always, but, the people who came before us, who set the stage, the history, all of that. Is there a particular person, and actually even outside of burlesque as well, that really just inspires you?
Yeah, unfortunately she passed away yesterday. But as per this recording, but
I am so sorry.
No, that's okay. But it's it's Barbara Young, Chinese American burlesque legend Barbara Young, who inspired my whole career. She literally a couple of weeks ago celebrated her 97th birthday. And I do a tribute act to her because she meant so much to me, which was invited to be performed at the Burlesque Hall of Fame last year. She was one of the first Asian women who performed burlesque back in the 1940s. She was incredible in San Francisco. She was such a pioneer and such a role model for myself, and I'm sure many other, not just Asian burlesque artists, but burlesque artists in general out there. She was a legend and an incredible woman. I was fortunate enough to speak to her, and she gave my act, my tribute act, her blessing. But in a few weeks' time, I was due to go around to her house to finally meet her in real life for tea. And unfortunately, I'm sorry to say that she passed away, although peacefully, yesterday. But she will always be remembered. And I was touched to see so many people, acknowledge what an incredible impact she's made on our industry. Because there are many Asian burlesque artists and Asian burlesque legends who aren't as well known, and she was one of those irreplaceable women, not just in burlesque but in the arts. So she will always be and always has been a role model to me.
Yes, she's a wonderful. I've known a bit about her. I don't know her too well, but I had no idea. I hadn't heard that she had passed. So. Yeah. So we can thank her for all of her, and blessings, of course, go out to her family and everything going through that. But I'm so sorry. It's especially hard when it's someone that has been so influential to you. So I'm sorry to hear that. So as you've met some various performers, other people that have been, influential and inspiring, have you had any particular really big fangirl moments? I mean, perhaps it was talking with her on the phone, or maybe meeting someone in person where you just kind of, we say fangirled out a little bit. You just were so excited.
Yes, I've had some incredibly embarrassing moments. Well, speaking to Barbara was a great moment. It was a fangirl moment, but it was an emotional moment, and just hearing her words and her saying thank you for not letting me be forgotten was just one of those moments where I was speechless, in awe. But I guess the most embarrassing, and I'm sure he will forgive me for mentioning this, was when I met dear Mr. Showbiz Murray Hill for the first time. I don't know, I'm a massive fan, Murray. And meeting him for the first time in New York after completely, crushing on him forever. Yes, I think what actually happened was I tripped over the cable near the stage that then pulled down the whole of the table where his laptop and all his equipment was, which then crashed his laptop onto the floor, and then I tripped over and I kind of flung up, and I was like, oh crap, hey Murray, I'm Sukki. And yeah, I'm really sorry, dear Murray Hill. Thank you for still being an MC for the Asian Burlesque Spectacular. I am so sorry that happened. But there's one of those moments where you get so flustered and so excited. Yeah. And I have no filter on my emotions that literally it was like a Dr. Pepper advert. It was so bad.
I love it. Yeah, I never need to ask that question to anybody else again. You win the question.
God, I don't know whether I want to win that competition.
Be proud of it. I am the best fangirl. Well, before we transition into our kind of quick fire, I always like to ask, because it's great for everybody to know, and I've heard some really good, like kind of, we mentioned hacks earlier, some other hacks. What is one thing that you always have with you in your burlesque backstage kit?
Oh, aside from pasty tape,
Yes, pasty tape is good. Yeah, certainly.
Pens, safety pins, safety pins, safety pins. The amount of things that rip or get hitched or zips that break is crazy. I think safety pins are God's gift to showgirls for repairing absolutely anything. And the great thing about safety pins, rather than bringing a sewing kit, is if a zip or a popper or something that breaks, when you pull it, it comes undone. So it's a great savior when anything snaps, rips, or snaps. So I cannot live without safety pins.
Folks, you heard it here first. Safety pins are God's gift to showgirls. We heard it. It's official.
It's a thing.
All right, let's do our Pick Your Poison section now. This is a very simple, I have 9 different questions that I just thought would be kind of fun to get to know you as a person a little bit better. You don't have to answer all 9. What I'll have you do is pick one number, 1 through 9, and I'll give you the corresponding question.
Okay. I'm going to pick my favorite number and the name of my cat, 7.
7. Excellent. Yeah. If you were stranded on a desert island, what 3 things would you have with you?
Man, you're asking the wrong person. I adore, maybe adore is a bit of a strong word, post-apocalyptic fiction. So I get deadly serious about this topic.
Okay, this isn't. So you're the best person then.
This isn't like, oh, I'd bring like my cat and my curly dog. This is serious. Right.
Love it.
I would bring.
Let's hear it.
I would bring a knife to cut everything, like a Swiss Army knife, because that is essentially what you need to survive. I would also bring cling film, because you can't drink seawater. But if you dig a really deep hole in the sand, and then put a twig upright, and then create a tent of cling film, and then put a vessel, be it like an open coconut husk, then you can actually collect the evaporated pure water, which you can then drink so you don't die of dehydration. So that, I have issues.
I'm so happy. No, I'm so happy right now. This is the best question ever.
Yeah. And then actually, controversially, I know some of you out there are thinking, why would you do that? Why would you do that? That's a non-essential, Sukki, but I believe it is an essential, is even though it wouldn't last forever, and yes, it is a man-made substance, and it's not necessarily going to help me in years, is a massive supply of antibiotics. Because, you can get natural disinfectants, but I don't know about you, but I'm not au fait on precisely what plants to start grinding up and sticking on myself in order to stop my leg from falling off if I cut it. So I'm going to go with a knife, cling film, and antibiotics.
I am so happy. That is the best. I love it. Because, of course, when I came up with this question, I'm thinking most people are going to say books and, and cats and things like that. And this is a very well thought out answer. Bravo to you.
This is serious.
This is serious business. This is not a joking matter, Velvet. What's wrong with you? I love it. Well, I know who to come to now if I ever need help with any post-apocalyptic things at all.
I'm ready.
All right, next up we have our this or that section. This is my quick fire, where you get basically just 2 choices, and you pick which one you prefer.
Okay.
Very simple. No pressure.
Certainly.
I will also say, I always tell my guests, you can interpret these in any way that you want. Ooh. Some of them are more obvious. Some of them are more open to interpretation. Okay. Just putting that out there. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts?
Starbucks.
City or country?
City.
Love or money?
Love.
Dita Von Teese or Dirty Martini?
Dirty Martini.
A dirty martini or a pint of beer?
Dirty Martini.
See what I did there? Yeah,
very good. Very good.
Day or night?
Night.
Harry Potter or Star Wars?
Star Wars.
Yes, that's my girl. Top or bottom?
Ooh, oh my.
I know. Interpretation as you like.
Oh, now I'm thinking all the inappropriate feels. I'm going to go top. It's quick fire.
Top, all right. Mountains or ocean?
Ocean.
Classic or neo-burlesque?
Classic.
Peanut butter or jelly?
Peanut butter.
Comedy or tragedy?
Comedy.
Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Sleep or sex?
Sleep. I'm an
Sounds so shy. Be proud of it.
I'm an insomniac, so I'm literally desperate. I'm desperate for
see.
it, and I mean sleep.
Understandable. Heels or bare feet?
Heels.
And lastly, the difficult one, Paris or Singapore?
Singapore.
No, of course. She doesn't even pretend to care enough. It's true. We love Paris. It's one of those beautiful cities, but I mean, come on. Home is home, right?
Home is home.
All right, you made it through the quick fire.
Awesome.
Everything is good now. Before we say goodbye, I want to kind of wrap it up. I'm always curious to hear, especially people who live in kind of different areas of the world, how do you typically stay current on burlesque news? Because it seems like it's often kind of spread all over the place.
Yeah, there are loads of different outlets to kind of read stuff. Read burlesque news. I'm a massive fan of Burlesque Bible, as yes. you might know. I obviously was honored to be able to grace the front cover last year. So I love reading that to see what's going on. Burlesque, which is fantastic. It has all the news, and it's also got great tutorials on everything. I absolutely adore Howard. And then just online, like I say, my phone is as we speak glued to my face. So I hashtag burlesque, and it comes up with the internets and everything to do with burlesque. So I just keep in touch, keep on the pulse in terms of that, but also not get too diverted or obsessed, because I think, yes, it's good to keep on the pulse and see what's going on, but, still do your own thing. It's cool to do your own thing as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's tough not to get pulled down the rabbit hole sometimes. Right? I find that especially on Twitter. I have a very primarily hate relationship with Twitter, just me personally, because I just find that it's just too easy to get sucked into kind of it's like, I heard somebody say today, it's like shouting down a big empty hallway, or maybe too full hallway or something,
Like throwing a sausage in a tunnel.
There you go. I like that too. That's probably better. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It can be tough. So for everybody listening, once again, I'll remind you that all the links that we're talking about here, the Burlesque Bible, Burlesque, everything like that, is going to be in the show notes over at burlesquestripdown.com/Sukki, which is SUKKI. So you can find that over there, along with this next question. If you have, do you have any YouTube or Vimeo or any other videos? We'd love to see maybe one of yourself and then one that you have going on, like you just can't get enough of right now.
Right, absolutely. I'll throw a link here to one of the videos that I constantly always watch. It may or may not be burlesque related. I'm not going to give anything away. It's a surprise. But it's something that I have major problems, cannot stop watching on loop. And then a video to one of my favorite performances, my signature giant diamond ring act.
Yes, it's my favorite one. Awesome. I think I've seen that around. Fantastic. And so before we say goodbye, I'm sure all of our listeners are dying. If they weren't already a big fan of you, they are now. And so they want to know how they can kind of keep up with you, get in touch with you, see when you're coming to maybe their country, since you jet set around all the time. So how can we keep up with you?
Okay, so the way you can find out about me is I'm on Instagram every single hour of every single day, so you can follow me. My handle is at Sukki Singapora, SUKKI, with an A on the end of Singapora. You can check out my website, where I put lots of different things that I'm doing. I also have a link to my blog, my Twitter account, etc. That's www.sukkisingapora.com. And you can also find me on Facebook, where I usually say when I'm going to come over to a certain city at a certain time. And you can also message me and write on my post and ask me to come and perform in your city. And that is www.facebook.com/Sukki Singapora.
Excellent. And I'm officially putting in a request right now. I'm in Orlando at the moment, so you get your butt down here, okay?
Deal.
Sounds like a plan. I'm exploring. I've just moved back here from Paris, and I'm not sure how long I'll be here. I kind of am a gypsy myself, and so I'm kind of exploring the burlesque world around here. Speaking of which, if anybody listening knows of anything that goes around in Florida, please email me and let me know, because it can be hard to find things. So, but I'd love to bring you here, even if it's just me. You can stay at my house.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Especially if you have cats. I'll bring cats.
I do actually. I have actually it's my mother's cats, not mine, so I don't get to, live with it all the time. But we have a black cat, and he's a wonderful, wonderful little cat.
Sold, I guess.
Oh, perfect. Excellent. Well, Sukki, it's been a real pleasure. I've really loved getting to know you. We have Miss Post-Apocalyptic herself with us, guys, Miss Sukki Singapora. Is there anything else you'd like to let our listeners know or kind of tell us about?
So just like we were saying at the beginning of the interview, the show that I'm co-producing that's happening in America, in New York, this May on the 21st, the Asian Burlesque Spectacular. I will make sure I put a link to tickets. In addition to this interview, please go check it out because it is so rare to have such incredible performers from such different backgrounds all be in one place in one time, and it's just in New York, and it only happens once a year, so please go check it out. That's the most exciting thing that's happening on my calendar this year, so I really want you guys to come and celebrate with me.
So cool. Maybe I'll have a look at plane tickets. I could use a vacation. I just got back, but I could use another one.
It's going to be one heck of a show.
Excellent. So, all right. So if anybody's listening and wants to do a little burlesque strip down kind of meetup, around the show, we can all go to the show together. It'd be a lot of fun. Let's make it a thing. Thank you once again, Sukki. It's been so great having you on.
Thank you for having me. See you soon.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only Sukki Singapora. Fabulous, right? I told you so. So don't forget to check her out all over the interwebs. If you happen to be in the New York area around May 21st, you should definitely check out the Asian Burlesque Spectacular. After looking at my calendar, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it this year, but I am going to put it on my wish list for next year. So maybe we can have a nice burlesque strip down meetup next year. How's that sound? Sound good? But if you're around, you should definitely check it out this year as well. So head on over to the show notes page for this episode to get all of the links to everything we talked about and to keep up with Sukki, particularly on Instagram, since she's glued to her phone all the time. You can get the show notes for this at burlesquestripdown.com/Sukki, Sukki. Now, before I sign off today, I do want to take 1 second to give a little shout out to another wonderful woman who took the time to send me an email. And I just would like to thank Miss Kitty Cat Scratch from Lock and Key Burlesque in Peoria, Illinois. Which actually, I think I have been to Peoria once. I think I had a forensics tournament there when I was in high school. So I've been there. Didn't see any burlesque when I was there. But so Miss Kitty Cat Scratch says, "Hi, Velvet. I just wanted to write and first off, thank you for your podcasts. As a performer, I wish that I had the information you bring each week when I started 10 years ago. As a producer, I'm so excited to have this podcast as a tool for my girls who aren't seasoned performers. You are providing an amazing guide, and it's really helpful that I can point new performers to your podcast to start their knowledge, and I can answer questions and help them delve deeper as I concentrate on the business and choreography." A smile. So thank you. That's so sweet. I mean, honestly, I'm blushing because that's exactly kind of what I'm going for here. I love for performers at all levels to be listening in, but I definitely love to be a resource of information for some of the newer performers, boys and girls, everybody, who are just kind of starting out and getting used to all of this. So thank you, Miss Kitty Cat Scratch. I will mention, if you are in the area, she has a couple events coming up at the beginning of June in Peoria. And then they will also be having one on November 12th. So I will be adding those to the event roundups, which are coming back. I was kind of slacking with those this year so far, but they are coming back. Just yesterday, I did post a brand new event roundup over on the website. So you can find that, which will have all of the events that I know about for May. And then a couple sneak peeks at June. If you have some events that you would like added to this roundup, I'm going to be updating it basically on a weekly basis as much as I can. So if you have any events that are coming up over the next few months, or you want to give me a heads up on something that's further on down the road, that's fabulous. Send me an email, velvet@burlesquestripdown.com, and I will definitely add those in as well. So anything around the world, I'd love to see some, in different countries and all of that good stuff as well. So thank you again to Miss Kitty Cat Scratch. She says, "I can't thank you enough for the service you're providing with your podcast." Again, making me blush. Here in Peoria, we may be right in between Chicago, St. Louis, Indianapolis, and the Quad Cities, but we have been a barren wasteland when it comes to burlesque. It's nice to have something I can go to remind myself of the things from when I was first starting out. and also to learn things to help run this as more of a business and less like a hobby, which you know is my passion. She says, thank you from the bottom of my sparkly little heart. No, thank you from the bottom of my sparkly little heart, Miss Kitty Cat Scratch. Thank you for emailing me. If you would like to let me know what you think of the podcast, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I will take it all. Again, send me that email, velvet@burlesquestrippeddown.com. So I think that about does it for me today. I have talked at you a lot. We've had some amazing stuff coming out with Sukki. I just loved some of that. I really want to go back. I'm probably going to have to go back and listen to it a couple more times myself to get all of that golden goodness. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please do let me know. If you do listen on iTunes, please take a second to subscribe, rate, and review over there or in whatever podcast player it is that you use. It will really help get the word out there more, and I would just love to hear and to be seeing what you guys think of this. So thank you again for listening. I will catch you again on Thursday and with another amazing interview with a fellow podcaster burlesquer, something like that, is coming up next week on Monday. So for now, I will sign off and remind you, as always, to make sure to stay sexy.